pause for just a moment. Before your thumb carries you somewhere else, before another voice competes for your attention, before another ordinary second slips into the past. There is a reason these words have found you now. Out of all the moments in your day, out of all the paths your eyes could have followed, something unseen has gently interrupted your routine. Whether you believe in signs or dismiss them as coincidence, your heart reacted before your mind did. It slowed. It wondered. It leaned closer. That quiet feeling inside you is not here by accident. Stay with it for a little longer, because what is about to unfold may echo inside your soul long after this moment has passed. You have spent so much time asking questions that no one around you could answer. You smiled while carrying invisible battles. You told yourself that patience would eventually make sense of every unanswered prayer. Yet there were nights when the silence felt heavier than any spoken rejection. You wondered if someone, somewhere, could truly understand the language your heart had been speaking without words. You convinced yourself that perhaps the story you longed for belonged to someone else. But even while you questioned everything, something beyond your sight refused to let go of your name. There is a voice calling to you now, not with thunder that shakes mountains, but with a whisper capable of moving eternity. Listen carefully. It does not arrive to frighten you. It comes to awaken something you buried beneath disappointment. There is a reason your chest feels strangely full while hearing these words. There is a reason memories are beginning to rise without invitation. Nothing inside you is random anymore. Long before today, before this hour, before you even knew this message existed, a conversation was taking place beyond what your eyes could perceive. It was not written on paper. It was not spoken in a language human ears could hear. Yet every heartbeat you've experienced has carried its echo. You believed you were waiting alone. You believed your longing existed in isolation. But someone has been waiting too. Not far away, not in another lifetime, not in another world, closer than you dare imagine, there is a soul whose heart has whispered your name without ever fully understanding why. They have walked through crowds feeling incomplete. They have laughed while carrying an emptiness they could never explain. They tried convincing themselves they had already missed whatever destiny once intended for them. They settled for distractions because hope became exhausting. Yet every time they accepted less than what their spirit truly desired, something inside them quietly resisted. They felt you, not your face, not your voice, but your absence, and that absence became impossible to ignore. If only you could see how many invisible roads nearly brought your lives together already. A delayed decision. A cancelled plan. A missed message. A journey taken one day earlier than expected. You called them coincidences because you had no other word for them. Yet unseen hands kept adjusting the pieces, not to punish either of you, but because timing has its own sacred rhythm. What feels delayed often hides protection. What feels forgotten sometimes waits for the exact heartbeat when recognition becomes undeniable. You have asked, Why hasn't love stayed? You have asked. Why do people leave? You have asked. Why does every beginning seem to end before becoming what I hoped? Those questions did not disappear into emptiness. Every tear carried information. Every disappointment shaped discernment. Every betrayal quietly removed a version of you that would never have recognized the love destined to find you. If every previous door had remained open, you would never have reached the one standing before you now. But here is what you do not yet see. Someone has been pleading in silence. Not with desperate words spoken into the air, not with dramatic gestures, but with prayers too deep for language. They have whispered, "Please, if the one meant for me exists, protect them." They did not know your name, yet heaven heard yours. They did not know your face, yet your future was already moving toward theirs. Think back for a moment. How many times did you almost give up on believing someone could truly choose you? How many times did you tell yourself you were too damaged, too complicated, too late? Those thoughts felt convincing because pain always knows how to imitate truth. Pain speaks confidently. It tells convincing stories. It introduces fear as if fear were wisdom. It reminds you of every wound but never of every miracle still approaching. And little by little, you almost believed it deserved the final word. But pain was never writing the ending. It was only describing the chapter it happened to occupy. The story continued while you couldn't see the pages turning. Even now, as these words reach you, something is shifting that you cannot measure. Perhaps it happened this morning. Perhaps it began days ago. Perhaps the first movement occurred months before you noticed anything changing. The unseen often moves long before the visible follows. Seeds never announce themselves while growing beneath the soil. The sunrise begins before light reaches your window. Love, too, prepares itself in hidden places. There is something your soul remembers that your mind has forgotten. It remembers hope before disappointment taught caution. It remembers trust before betrayal demanded walls. It remembers believing that someone could look into your eyes and recognize home instead of obligation. That memory has never disappeared. It merely became quiet, until now. Have you noticed how impossible it has become to silence certain dreams lately? Perhaps someone unexpected keeps entering your thoughts. Perhaps you feel restless without understanding why. Perhaps ordinary routines suddenly feel too small for the future you're beginning to sense. None of these feelings appeared without purpose. Your spirit often recognizes movement before your circumstances reveal it. That inner stirring is not weakness, it is preparation. Because there is something your soulmate wishes they could tell you this very second. If distance no longer separated your paths, they would tell you not to quit now, not today, not after surviving everything you already have. They would tell you that every scar you hide would become something they would never ask you to apologize for. They would tell you that your tenderness is not a flaw. Your sensitivity is not a burden. Your loyalty is not something to be ashamed of simply because others failed to value it. They would tell you to stop measuring your worth through the eyes of people who were only passing through your story. If only you could hear them. If only the distance between your lives disappeared for 1 minute. You would realize that someone has already thanked heaven for the existence of a person they have. Not yet consciously met. Does that sound impossible? Many things sound impossible until the day they happen. No one believes dawn exists while standing in complete darkness, yet morning never asks permission to arrive. It simply comes. There is another truth you have been afraid to face. Deep inside, you have sensed that your life is approaching a turning point. You have ignored the feeling because change often disguises itself as uncertainty. You kept telling yourself to wait until everything made logical sense. But not every doorway opens through certainty. Some doors only appear after courage takes the first step, and yours is beginning to appear now. Someone is hoping you do not retreat into old habits again. They are hoping you stop answering loneliness by isolating yourself further. They are hoping you stop assuming silence means rejection. They are hoping you stop believing every delay carries bad news. Because while you were convincing yourself nothing meaningful was happening, everything meaningful had already begun. There were moments recently when you almost chose numbness instead of hope. You considered lowering your expectations simply to avoid future disappointment. You thought surviving was safer than believing, yet your soul quietly refused. Have you wondered why? Because something inside you recognized that surrender would have happened too early. You were standing only a few unseen steps away from a completely different season. Imagine walking away from sunrise because midnight lasted longer than expected. Imagine abandoning a garden because flowers were still beneath the earth. Imagine closing your eyes just before the stars rearranged themselves into the answer you had prayed for. That is how close unseen timing can feel. Closer than logic permits, closer than fear admits, closer than your doubts have allowed you to imagine. There is someone whose journey has been strangely similar to yours. They know disappointment. They know betrayal. They know what it feels like to question whether genuine love still exists. They know how exhausting it becomes to appear strong when the heart longs simply to rest beside someone safe. Without realizing it, both of you have been learning identical lessons from completely different roads. You thought life was separating you. Life was preparing you. Preparation often resembles delay until the purpose becomes visible. There were qualities neither of you possessed years ago that now define who you are. Compassion born from suffering, patience born from waiting, wisdom born from heartbreak, discernment born from disappointment. Without those lessons, you might have crossed paths and failed to recognize each other. Read that again inside your spirit. You might have met too early. You might have mistaken timing for compatibility. You might have confused attraction with destiny. But now something feels different, doesn't it? You cannot fully explain it, yet ordinary conversations seem less satisfying. Temporary attention feels strangely empty. The things that once distracted you no longer silence the deeper longing within. That is because your soul has begun searching with new eyes. And somewhere, someone else's heart has begun doing exactly the same thing. There have been nights when they stared at the ceiling wondering why they suddenly felt hopeful for no visible reason. There have been mornings when they smiled without understanding what had changed. There have been moments when they almost turned around while walking because they felt someone familiar nearby. Even though no one was there, invisible connections often introduce themselves through quiet moments first. Never underestimate what cannot yet be explained. There are realities beyond immediate understanding. Not everything meaningful arrives with evidence. Some things arrive first as conviction, then as movement, then as undeniable experience. You have been taught to distrust anything that cannot immediately be proven. Yet the deepest realities in life often reveal themselves backward: faith before sight, hope before fulfillment, preparation before arrival, recognition before explanation. Your soulmate has unknowingly been moving through the exact sequence, and so have you. What neither of you understands yet is how close the invisible distance has become. There is a conversation waiting to happen, a glance waiting to linger 1 second longer than expected, a moment so ordinary on the surface that almost no one else would notice it, yet heaven would, because some encounters never announce themselves with fireworks. Some begin with peace, some begin with familiarity, some begin with the strange feeling that you have finally stopped searching because your heart suddenly recognizes something it cannot explain. That moment exists. It is real within this story, but there is one obstacle remaining, only one. It is not another person, it is not distance, it is not fate turning against you, it is fear. Fear has become skilled at wearing your own voice. It says, protect yourself. It says, don't expect too much. It says, this will probably end like everything else. Fear memorized your history, but it has never seen your future. It keeps trying to convince you that yesterday deserves authority over tomorrow. Do not let it, because the very walls that once protected your heart may become the same walls preventing it from recognizing the person who has been praying to meet someone exactly like you. Think carefully. How many opportunities have quietly disappeared because fear spoke first? How many beautiful beginnings never had the chance to breathe because old pain answered before hope could? Someone is asking you, even without knowing your name, not to let that happen again. Not this time, not when both journeys have come so far, not when unseen pieces have aligned through countless moments neither of you noticed. There is a sentence echoing through eternity at this very moment. You cannot hear it with ordinary ears, but your spirit senses its weight. It simply says, please don't miss this moment. Not because perfection awaits, not because life will suddenly become effortless, but because there are moments that quietly redefine everything that follows. One conversation, one decision, one unexpected encounter, one act of courage. Entire futures often begin that simply. You have imagined destiny arriving with impossible certainty. Instead, it may arrive disguised as an ordinary day you almost ignored, and that is why these words found you now, because there is something approaching that looks smaller than it truly is. Most people will overlook it, most people will dismiss it, most people will stay distracted long enough to miss the invitation completely. But you, something inside you is beginning to awaken. You can feel it, can't you? That gentle tension, that mysterious expectation, that quiet awareness that life may be whispering instead of shouting. Listen carefully, do not rush ahead, do not look away, because the next truth changes everything, and once it is revealed, nothing inside your heart will ever feel quite the same again. The silence you feel right now is not empty, it is full of movement you cannot yet see, full of answers that have not reached your hands, full of footsteps traveling toward a moment that has already been written into the unseen pages of your story. If your heart has remained here this long, then perhaps it has already recognized what your mind is still trying to understand. Take another breath, not because you are afraid, because what comes next deserves your full attention. There is something your soulmate has been trying to say to you without ever speaking your language. If they could stand before you this very second, they would not begin by telling you where they have been. They would not begin by explaining every chapter of their past. They would simply look into your eyes and say, "I almost stopped believing you existed." Those words would carry years of hidden tears, years of pretending everything was fine, years of watching other people find happiness while wondering why every path they walked seemed to circle back to loneliness. Just like you, they questioned themselves. Just like you, they blamed themselves for things that were never theirs to carry. Just like you, they wondered if perhaps they were asking for too much. But deep inside, neither of you was asking for too much. You were asking for something real. There is a difference.